We've talked before about how to save money on pet food and vet bills, but today we're taking it a step further. Instead of scrambling to cover those costs when they happen, we're looking at how we can plan for them before they do. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to take a more proactive approach to all your pet expenses so you can be prepared, confident, and stress-free when those costs come up. So stay tuned. You've reached the Pet Parent Hotline, your lifeline to practical solutions for your toughest pet parenting challenges. I'm your host, Amy Castro, and I'm here to help you cut through the noise and turn expert advice into step-by-step strategies so you can stop chasing your tail and start enjoying life with pets again. I think that most of us can admit we've had at least one "how the heck did this get so expensive" moment when it comes to our pets. Maybe it's when the vet bill hits the same week as your car payment, or when your dog's daycare costs start to rival your grocery bill. But the truth is, pets are not one-time expenses. They are ongoing financial commitments. But that doesn't mean that our pets' costs have to be stressful or unpredictable, even when it comes to things like emergencies. With the right mindset and just a little bit of planning, you can take control over your pet budget instead of letting pet expenses control you. So today we're going to break down how we can think about pet care expenses the same way that you probably should be approaching any other household cost, so you can be ready for what's coming, avoid unnecessary debt, and give your pets the care they deserve without completely draining your wallet. My guest today is Joe Okaly, a certified financial planner, author of the Financial Pinwheel, and owner of New Horizons Wealth Management, and will be a featured TEDx speaker in 2026. Through books, podcasts, and online resources, his goal is to help 100,000 middle-class families learn sustainable money habits. This way they can spend less time worrying about money and more time enjoying life. How about that? Joe, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here to help us talk about how pet parents can get ahead of their expenses instead of being blindsided by them.
Yeah, Amy, it's awesome to be here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today, so it should be great.
Great. Yeah, I bet you never thought you were going to end up on a pet podcast, did you?
I can honestly say I was not expecting that. You really blew me away when you reached out to me. I thought it was such a great idea, and why has nobody else thought about doing this before? So I'm really excited about today's conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, everything that I run into when it comes to pet parenting, as somebody that runs a rescue, so many of the times that people are reaching out to either surrender their pet or to see if there's anything we can do to help them with their pet, it comes down to finances. And it's really easy to write things off and say, well, you should have thought, because rescue people can be very judgy. And a lot of rescue people would say, well, you should have thought of that when you got a pet. But you can't think of everything, and people's situations change. But on the flip side of that, playing devil's advocate, I think we could do a better job, myself included, in planning. And I thought, well, you don't need to be a pet expert to talk about planning for money. It could really be any expense that you're trying to plan for. But here we're trying to keep pets in homes and keep people able to pay for them, especially as things have gotten so crazy expensive when it comes to pet stuff. So, to kick things off, let's just kind of keep it relatively simple and talk about what you think would be like the first step in planning for pet expenses. Like I said, it's easy for people to say, oh, you should have thought of that when you got a pet. And maybe it is, maybe that is the first step in the process. But what would you advise people?
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, for what people are thinking about, when I had dogs growing up, the first thing I thought about was not, oh, wow, I can't wait to plan my budget for this pet. It was, I can't wait to hold the pet and hug it and hang out with it and run with it outside. So the intention is great. So let's just, like you said today, let's focus on some of that secondary stuff that's also important. But, people really aren't trained for that. There's very little financial literacy education in schools, which is pets and every other expense. So, when we're talking about pets in particular, and what are some of the first things to think about, I think the biggest thing is just to acknowledge that a pet does have costs. There are going to be expenses that come along with it. Myself included, when I had pets growing up, I was really excited to get the pet and welcome them to my family. And the financial part of it, though, is very real. So, there may be more costs up front, whether it be going to the vet, vaccines, getting your house situated, buying the new dog bed, and then you kind of feel like you're done. but
Right.
you really are not going to be done, right? It's just the start of a longer journey. And so if we're being honest with ourselves, there is going to be some kind of an expense that comes up. There's going to be monthly ones that we know about, like feeding the pet. There's going to be regular ones throughout the year, like going to the vet. And then there's going to be what I call regular, irregular events that happen for every pet owner, or, and just part of life is going to be at some point. For me, it was my dog ate an entire butternut squash and we had to run them to the emergency room.
Gosh.
So, there's always going to be that kind of stuff. So I think the first big step is let's just acknowledge there are going to be expenses, both planned and unplanned. And so if we're going to have a pet, we need to make sure that we're of that mindset. We're going to have to create a plan to kind of handle some of that stuff.
Okay. And it's interesting because on our adoption application for Starlight Outreach and Rescue, one of the last things that we have you kind of sign off, and I attest to the fact that I know this, I attest to the fact that I know that. And we throw some numbers in there, that pets can, the ASPC estimates that a pet costs, I don't remember the dollar amount, but, $1,500, $2,500, whatever it is. And I've never had anybody say, well, hold on a minute now. Do you think that part of it has to do with the fact that those numbers just don't seem real to people until they're paying it? Because they nod and they smile and they say, oh, yes, I realize that they're expensive. I realize they have to go to the vet all of the time. Where does that go wrong?
I think part of us just, human nature is we feel like, well, we'll figure it out. We'll handle that. We'll cross that bridge kind of when we get to it, kind of a thing. But, for us, like when we have people that we're working with and maybe they want to get a new car and it's more expensive and they say, well, can I afford to do this? And we say, well, this new car costs $200 more than your old car. Do you have an extra $200 right now? Because if you don't have an extra $200 right now, how are you going to come up with an extra $200 to pay for this higher car? And the same kind of thing goes for taking on a pet. If a pet's going to cost $200 a month on average, do you have an extra $200 a month right now that you're not spending, that you have available? Because if you can't afford an extra $200 a month right now that you're saving, how do you expect to be able to do that for a pet?
Right. Yeah, that's so true. And the other thing that I've run into with people too is this. It's surprising to me how many people, when they're renting, don't realize what the fee. Because that's one of the questions that we ask on our application. What are the fees? And people, probably 60% of the people will say there is none. And of course, we call the complex. I called one the other day. It was $400 for a deposit and $50 a month for each pet. And they already had a pet. Well, no, they didn't already. There was two different ones. There was one that already had a pet and she was aware of the fees. And the other one that, once she found out what the fees were, she was like, yeah, maybe not, So how does a person start to get a handle on all of these expenses? Like, I feel like you probably could just go out and Google what pet expenses should I anticipate over the course of a year if I have and then fill in the blank, a cat, a pony, whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think a pony's probably more expensive, but yeah.
I had one, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, if you do Google it, you can get a general idea. I think it still goes back to that same point. There are going to be expenses. So, practicing, okay, where am I going to take $200 a month away? If I don't have an extra $200, $300 a month, whatever it might be now, where am I going to take that away from and kind of get myself mentally into the mindset of, hey, this is something that I can afford to do because I'm going to be setting it aside every month. And so really the acknowledgement part, I think, is the first most important step. And then I think, we could talk to kind of like, well, how am I going to design this kind of thing as we go along? But I think really step one is acknowledging, and then we kind of build off of that framework.
Okay. So then when the next step would be then what? Figuring out how we're going to actually pay for that once I realize that's what the expense is going to be, correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, most people, when they have a pet, it can either be handling some of the expenses like dog food. You're just going to have to, pay out of pocket kind of a thing. Whereas there's also health and pet insurance that you can get as well. So kind of coming up with a framework of a plan. And what I usually tell people when I'm working with them and we're working on their financial plan is kind of, well, right now, the mentality that most people have is they have their income and then they say, okay, then I minus out my spending and then whatever left is saving. And that kind of mindset tends to leave you with no savings, right? Because as human beings, we kind of spend up to our ability. And so what we try to help people do is change that equation, flip that equation around. So instead of income minus spending equals saving, we want the mindset to be income minus saving equals spending. So you want that saving piece to happen first. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but that mental change of, hey, I get $3,000 a month, let's say, for my paycheck, I'm going to take $300 off the top, put it to the side. And now I know that I have $2,700 a month to play with for the remainder of it. And many people kind of resist. They say, well, I can't find 10% to save, kind of a thing. But when you think of like your credit card bill probably varies month to month, right? It's not exactly $1,000 a month every month. Maybe it's $1,300. Then the next month it's $700. And then the next. So we do have the ability to be a little bit flexible. It's just more of a mindset of, let me put this aside first before I spend the rest of it. And then that gets you into that habit of doing it. So whether it's saving towards yourself and your retirement, or saving into, say, like a pet emergency fund, so you have that money on the side for when there is a hospital bill or whatever it might be, that kind of, let me handle the important stuff first, the savings piece of it first, and then you'd be surprised at how well the humans are able to kind of adapt to whatever's left over and make it work.
Yeah, I think because a lot of people, pet or not, if I'm already in it, like I've already got the pet, I'm already in the apartment, I'm already paying on the car note, how do I then go back and pull out from that?
Can you clarify? So what do you mean pull out from that?
Well,
exactly?
I'm already living my life. I'm already spending what I'm spending. And now I decide, okay, I want to do the right thing and start putting some money away. So I'm going to take 10% away from that. What if there is no 10% that's there, or 5% or whatever it might be?
So one of the questions we would ask people is let's say that tomorrow your kid got sick, or tomorrow you got a pay cut at work, or the government just came out with another crazy tax that everybody has to pay, and your income went down 10% tomorrow. Like what would you do in that case? And most people, they're not going to throw in the towel, right? Oh, I give up on life. You're going to figure it out, right? And so most people can figure it out if they have that mindset that they have to figure it out. And then even if, let's say, you can't get the 10%, maybe I can only do 3% to start, or 5% to start. All right, well, let me at least calculate that 10% number. Because if I look at my income from 5 years ago, it's probably a good amount higher than it is today, yet my savings probably didn't go up at all over the last 5 years. So what is that number that I want to get to? So now when I do get my next pay raise, or do get my next bonus, or I do get whatever that next increase in income might be, my first thought is, let me take a piece of that increase and get to my 10% before I increase my spending along with it. So kind of at least you know what the number is that you're trying to get to, so you have a target that you can kind of shoot for as time goes on.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think you're right. People will figure out a way. They'll figure out, at least even in the short term, to kind of get the ball rolling in that direction. So that's a good mindset. So don't look at it as, oh, I've just decided to save, but paint that mental picture of, I'm in this emergency situation, I don't have it, and count it as money that I don't have, which is probably half the reason why you want to pull it off the top and put it away where you can't, where it's not so obvious.
Yeah, the sooner you could pull it out of the way, the better it is. I mean, because again, like if you go to the grocery store, you don't spend the same amount every month. You go to get gas in your car, you don't spend exactly the same amount every month. So there is a little bit of flexibility in there. And so what we recommend people to do is we come up with a number to start. Maybe it's not 10% to start, maybe it's 5%, maybe it's something else. And then we kind of say, let's try to push it a little bit further. So let's say we came up with 200. Why don't we try 300 to start? Because I know if people can't afford 300, they're going to give me a call. I tried it. It's too tight. Let's lower it to 200. If we start at 200, but they can actually wind up saving 300, I have never got one of those phone calls. I could save more than what you want. I want even more out of my pocket. Yeah, we've never gotten one of those phone calls. So trying to push yourself a little bit. And I would say the majority of times, people are surprised that they can actually do it. So once you put yourself into that situation and you're really trying, let's take it off the top to start. It's not like we're taking it off the top and throwing it away. It's still in your name. It's still in you're still saving it. It's just in your savings account instead of in your checking account. And so now it's money that's getting forced to the sideline. And again, you have more power than you realize in adjusting your lifestyle to kind of make some of these things work. And it's not always 10%. Sometimes it's something you have to build up to, like I said, year over year, but at least get a target of what am I shooting for me to feel really good about myself. And then that way you can at least work towards it year after year.
Right. So on the idea of putting it aside versus the pet insurance. And I know neither of us are experts in pet insurance. And what I would say for people when you're considering pet insurance is to make sure that you fully understand it, what it actually does cover, because I do get a lot of those phone calls as well as I've been paying on pet insurance, but I didn't realize it didn't cover this or it wasn't going to cover that. But I was having a conversation with a friend this morning and we were talking about kind of the whole concept of putting it aside versus paying for pet insurance, because like up until recent years, have always, and this will probably make you cringe, have always just escrowed for my taxes on my property tax because Amy Castro is not good at putting it aside and peeling it off the top, or I haven't been in the past, and being somebody that's self-employed whose income does fluctuate fairly significantly. I use that as an excuse, but I think it is probably just an excuse. But do you feel like the idea of paying on pet insurance every month because I know it's a bill might be even easier than setting the savings aside, or should they possibly be doing both?
Yeah, so I think it should be, again, a conscious decision because a lot of times I think people that may not get pet insurance aren't getting it because they're saying, I'm making the choice to self-insure my pet's needs. They're just saying, I don't want to pay for the insurance and I hope my pet doesn't get sick and it doesn't come out of my pocket kind of a thing. So I think if you're going to come up with a plan, it should be intentional. Either I'm getting insurance and like you said, I understand what it covers and what it doesn't cover, or B, I'm choosing intentionally to self-insure, and so I'm going to set aside X amount per month so that now I have a pool of money to draw from. To your point, pet insurance, if it's a bill that you have to pay, people tend to be more apt to get into a habit of paying somebody else, unfortunately, more than themselves
Yeah.
sometimes. Because you're paying yourself, you feel like, well, I don't have to. It's something I just can do if I want to. Whereas if it's an insurance or a bill that comes in, you may have more of a feeling like it's something that you have to pay. So I think part of the question is, how are you mentally most comfortable? Are you more comfortable with having the ability to lean on and insure to some degree in certain situations? Or are you more the mentality, I'd rather not have to pay the insurance company and kind of just manage it on my own? And if you are a pet owner that has some history, look at the last year, look at the last 2 years, how much did you pay? What did you pay for? And then see how much of that would insurance actually have cost or covered or cost for the cost. So if it cost me $1,000 a year and I would have only gotten $500 of benefit over the last year, probably doesn't make the most sense. But now you have some kind of data to go off of and make an intentional, again, decision on whether you want to leverage that insurance company or just kind of handle it on your own.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I was sitting here when you were talking about that process, it got me thinking about the fact that I would assume that once you've put a plan into place, you would reassess that plan periodically, because I think about the lifetime of a pet. You get, let's say, a puppy. That puppy is going to cost you more money in the beginning because you're going to need more frequent vet visits. You're going to probably be buying more toys. They're going to destroy more of your stuff. And you're going to have to replace it. So they can be super duper, and they get into mischief and they hurt themselves and whatever it might be. Then there's kind of this lull of the middle where you've gotten into a routine and you kind of know how much things cost. And then when pets get older, they do need to go to the vet more frequently, and they might need a dental. I mean, I don't know if you've investigated pet expenses, but I have a Chihuahua who, her mouth, I kid you not, is about the size of my index finger. I mean, that's how tiny. She's not even 5 pounds. She had to go and get a dental cleaning done, and it was $1,000. It's like, it's a big expense, and it's not something that's not the first time she's had one done. And she, at that point, because her teeth had gotten bad enough, they just ended up taking all of her teeth out. So I have no more dentals. But, with a lot of people who have dogs, for example, especially small breed dogs, and this is just something for listeners to know, larger breed dogs need a lot fewer dentals in the grand scheme of things than smaller breeds. Small breeds, you need to be planning for that every couple of years as your pet ages. And guess what? Your little dog's going to live a lot longer than a big dog. So I guess my point is, it is important for people to reassess. Do you find that people do a good job of kind of predicting those types of things, or do they get caught off guard?
Yeah, I mean, people have enough going on in their lives where they're probably not going to reassess. I mean, when it comes to money in general, you say at a minimum, it's really a good idea to look at your situation at least once per year. So kind of like, write down all your bank accounts, write down all your investment accounts, write down your credit card, your mortgage, and then look at it once every 12 months. And what really helps with that from a financial standpoint is just like, let's say your bank accounts are higher than they were 12 months ago when you looked at it. You might know, hey, that I can literally see that I have some extra money that's building up. And now you
Mm-hmm.
have the conscious ability to grab it and say like, hey, I'm going to put this aside, for my pet. That's going to be my pet emergency fund or something like that. But if you look at it once per year, you have that ability. Now you can do it more than that, but like at a minimum once per year, just kind of taking a look at everything. And, whether it's saving for retirement or funding an expense, we have a lot of people who, let's say they get a Christmas bonus. That's their savings for the year. But that could also be their pet coverage for the year. Okay, I get $1,000
Mm-hmm.
Christmas bonus. Let me grab that and put it to the side, and that's going to be my pet emergency fund for the year. Or I
Mm-hmm.
get a tax refund of $1,000 every year. Let me grab that and put it to the side. That's my pet emergency fund for the year. And so if you're taking it and you're putting it in a separate account that's away from your normal checking account, now the worst thing that can happen is you save too much, right? And now you still have extra money that you wouldn't have there otherwise. Hopefully that's the case, that your pet does not need a lot of care this year, and there's extra money that's left in the account. But I mean that's a good thing, right? So
Roll it over. Don't
roll it
spend
over,
it.
just keep going.
Please. Yeah,
So
exactly.
as much as you could separate it, the better.
Yeah, well, and that I was going to ask that question too, because I remember when I first really started saving, is I made a point because there's like my local account and then there's my account in San Antonio, right? And now of course everything's electronic, it's a little easier to get to, but when it's directly connected to your checking, it's so easy to say, well, I'm gonna pull a little bit here because I'm a little short on this, or I want to go do that, or whatever it might be. Whereas if it's in another account, and I think for people just coming from from somebody who's from a psychological standpoint or from a communication background, is to make it very, very clear in your own head that that is Guinevere's financial account, or it is her life-saving account, because it could be, knowing my dog, it could be a life-saving situation that I've got that money, and as opposed to, oh, I'm just going to stick it in my savings. Do you think it's pretty important to
Yeah.
make
So
that very distinction?
yeah, I mean, the harder you can make it to get to that money, the better. So what you said, retitling the account, you know, saving my dog's life account, harder to pull money from a saving your dog's life account if you retitle it on your banking app.
Yeah.
And then what a lot of our clients do, they like having money with us. So instead of having a money market at their bank, that's their emergency fund, they'll have it with us. And so that they have to call us for us to send them the money. And a lot of finances is behavioral. So there's a whole offset of finances. It's called behavioral finances because money is not just this black and white tool. Money is an emotional element. How we connect with money, how we think about money, what we spend money on. There's a huge emotional connection to it. And so you're right to have it set up physically so that it supports you emotionally, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
have money at a separate account that's harder to get to, not that you can't get to it, but just making it harder to get to, retitling the account. Those are all great ideas to give yourself a better chance because we are emotional human beings. We need to make sure we acknowledge that and set up our systems that support the way that we naturally are.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So I was telling Joe before we started the recording about the fact that I have to get a new roof on my house. It is an enormous expense. So the other day I moved money from my faraway account into my local account. I kid you not. 30 minutes later, I'm looking at my phone and my investment guy's company name pops up. I got scared. I thought I'm going to get in trouble because I took that money. And he was just calling to see, hey, did you sell the house? What'd you decide to do on the house? But I was like, I feel guilty taking that money. And I
Mhm.
certainly don't like to ask him. I sneak around and kind of do it the back way, whereas I could just call because it does make it a lot harder to take that money. I will tell you
Yeah.
from personal experience.
And it is your money. And if you're working with
I
it, it
know.
sounds like you're working with a great person. So, if
Yeah.
you are working, there's nothing that you have to worry about as far as, is my money safe? Can I get, you can get to it, no problem whatsoever. But just you're emotionally setting it up in a way that you have a better chance of succeeding for what you're wanting to do. It's kind of like parking at the back of the parking lot forces you to walk more steps to get into the store kind of a thing. You're just setting yourself up physically with what the arrangement is to support the end goal that you're looking for.
Yeah. If a person can get a handle on this, whatever the dollar figure might be, because I know there's probably people listening and we've been tossing out some dollar amounts and those may feel unattainable or unrealistic. What would you tell people in those situations to kind of reduce that stress? Because I don't want to leave anybody thinking, oh my gosh, I can't save $200-$300 or 10% or whatever it might be.
So the first thing to start with is just any number, $5, $10. It may sound silly, but starting with anything and getting into the habit of setting the money aside on a monthly basis, that's the most important thing. And when you set it aside, you want to automate it. So you don't want to have to manually remember to go in and do it every month. It's just not going to happen. So just like the mortgage company or the rent company or the car loan, they all want to automate the payment to them because they know that's the best way to have it come back to them every single month and come out. So use that same trick, but use it in a way that's going to be helping yourself. So you can have it every 15th of the month, have $10 come out, then $20, then $30, slowly work your way up. Whatever you start with, the hardest thing is taking that first step. So they say, like, if you're wanting to get into shape, the first hardest thing is just getting into the gym that first day. Even if you just stay there for 5 minutes and do one machine, that's the hardest workout that you will have on your journey to get to where you want to get to, is that first time getting back into it. It's the same thing with setting up a savings mentality for yourself, setting money aside so that you have it for your pet, so you have it for yourself for the future. So don't think like, oh, this is too little. Whatever the minimum amount is that you're comfortable with, even if it's $5, start at $5, then work your way up to 10. And anytime you get an increase in your income, think, oh, great. That's money that now I can set aside. And if you take advantage of those, you'll be shocked how quickly you can work yourself up to material amounts of money where you're saying, wow, look at what I did. And the great thing about that is that you will feel so empowered. You're going to come out of this feeling, I did this. I was able to create something for myself. And when you're able to create something for yourself, it's just going to make you want to do it even more and even more. But again, that first step is getting your foot in that door. Don't wait to start automating your savings until you can do 100 or 200 if that's above your means. Start with 5, start with 10, start with anything, because the most important part is not the dollar, it's the habit that you're getting yourself into.
That's right. And I think don't psych yourself over necessarily trying to shoot for a target goal per se, because the way that I look at it is whatever you've been able to save that you can then apply towards that vet bill is, money you wouldn't have had otherwise and you would have been scrambling for. So even if it covers half of the vet bill or 3/4 of the vet bill, it's better than putting all of it on a credit card and incurring interest, things like that.
Yeah. Perfect isn't always available, but better usually is. So shoot for better. And if you just always shoot for better, you're going to be in a better spot down the road.
That's great advice. Thank you so much.
I think the only other thing I would throw out there is if some of this stuff feels a little new or scary, you are not alone. Most every person I talk to, when I speak to them for the first time, they have this fear. They have this, I should know better and I don't. I should have done this, but I didn't. Pretty much every person I talk to has that mentality. So if you feel that way, you're not alone. Don't let that hurt you tomorrow for that feeling that you have today. You're not in a different position than most people out there. No one is really taught financial literacy in school. No one's really given the education that they need to do these things. So don't be hard on yourself. Forgive yourself. Just the best thing you can do for yourself is take that step forward today.
That's great. It's a good motivation to kind of keep that moving forward. And I like that whole concept of just doing a little bit better. A little bit better is always something that we can strive for. So, Joe, thank you so much for spending the time. I know you're a busy guy and you have lots of other things you could be doing than spending your time chatting with me here on this pet podcast. But I really appreciate the advice that you've given, and I think it really is going to help allay some fears and reduce some stress for our listeners. So thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. It was great to be here, Amy. And, part of what I shared with you off air is, financial literacy is kind of my mission here. I want to help 100,000 families out there do something better with their finances. So it's an honor to be here. And I hope some of the stuff that I've shared here will help other people on their journeys.
Thank you. So, Joe, I know you've got a podcast, and there's a lot of episodes that I dug through, and a lot of great information out there, and probably other resources as well. So, if people wanted to get a hold of you to get more information or some help, how would they do that?
Sure. Yeah. So I have my Enjoy More 30s podcast. So that's out there for anybody that wants to go through Enjoy More 30s finance. And then I also have a book, The Financial Pinwheel, that's out there with some courses and stuff for people that are interested. I also try to put out lots of social media posts, whether it be on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. So you can find me on there. Always trying to spread little financial tidbits, knowledge, pieces that could help people with their journeys that they're trying to take financially to achieve what they want in life. So any of those would be great options.
Great. And we will put the links to all of those things in our show notes as well, so people have that accessible. I love how Joe broke all this down today, because at the end of the day, financial planning for your pets isn't about being perfect with your money. It's about being prepared. Whether that means tracking your real costs, setting up a small automatic transfer, or deciding how you're going to handle those bigger bills when they happen, a little bit of planning goes a long way towards reducing stress and protecting both your wallet and your pets. If you found this episode helpful, please be sure to share it with somebody that you know that is spiraling over pet expenses. And if you found ways to put some of these steps into action already, make sure you join us in our Pet Parent Hotline Insiders group on Facebook and share those helpful hints with other pet parents so they can do the same. So bottom line, if you don't take anything else away from today's episode, which hopefully you did, I think we covered a lot of great stuff, is that you don't have to earn your pet's love by the acts and actions that you go through every day. You've already got that love. Guilt may pop up from time to time, but it doesn't have to control you, and it doesn't have to control your relationship with your pet or your story as a pet parent. If today's conversation helped you rethink your guilt and how you handle it, I'd love to hear more about that in our Pet Parent Hotlines Insider group, or leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform. Your experiences might help another pet parent feel a little bit less alone. And don't forget to follow the Pet Parent Hotline on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode like this one. Thanks for listening to the Pet Parent Hotline. If you enjoyed the show, don't keep it to yourself. Text a friend right now with a link and tell them I've got a show that you need to hear, and ask them to let you know what they think. And remember, your pet's best life starts with you living yours. So be sure to take good care of yourself this week and your pets.